Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Nitin Reddy Cheruku. I'm a principal AI architect at Google Cloud. Nice to be here. Thanks for all the support from the Teradata team. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I know you might all be hearing about agentic AI systems, Gen AI and whatnot. So I'm going to go a little bit more into like, how do you build one of those? And we're going to talk about like some of the best practices to take it to production. And also at the same time, what does it mean from the experience looks like from the product, and what does that, what and how you actually integrate into your day-to-day workflows, especially for the data landscape, right? All right, so there's a small agenda that we have. So we'll run through a quick challenges on what are the problems that we are trying to solve, and also at the same time, and what kind of a multi-agentic system that we could be building and what we are building for, and a sample solution architecture and a demo around that. After that, we're going to talk through like, okay, how do you take it to production? What are the challenges you see and how you should be thinking around that, right? And then, we're going to leave some time for Q&A, and we're really expecting to get some hardball questions today. So, so me and Cameron are ready to kind of like, and Merlin here to take on some rapid fire questions as well at the end. All right. So what we are seeing, essentially like, the whole session today is mostly about building agentic AI systems, multi-agentic systems, and how we as, personas, like whether that could be a data analyst or like whether that could be other user personas, when we are building these AI systems, how do we like kind of work with them, right? How can they make our life easier in our day-to-day operations, right? Like that's the intent, and that's the product thinking what we had when we are putting this, when we were like coming up with this session. So as you can see on the screen, now what we see across with a lot of data ecosystem, lot of conversational analytic content will be served through the AI-powered applications. That's the Gartner research, what has been proposed, where the 75% of the content will be served through AI applications, which is beyond the traditional dashboards, right? So what they're looking forward is like when the data is being consumed. So when you look at the whole data value chain, the data across where the data practitioners as well as the data consumers, how they are going to leverage AI and agents across this value chain is going to change. That's what they are actually thinking through, and how these data consumers can actually get deeper insights into the data without going through like complex SQL, like those kind of stuff. How do we make it very easy, right? So the goal is to like, build simple tools to make all the personas or the experiences who are like less technical but get deeper insights around the data.
Okay, before we go, how many of you, could I get a quick show of hands, how many of you work in an IT environment as a leader or directly support as a salesperson or services engineer? Could you get a quick hand in terms of like people that are actually working in the IT space or analytics space? It's like half the audience, right? So this is what Gartner is saying here and why this is important, and we'll talk about lots of whys. But for every dashboard that your team or your colleagues or your customer is making, starting immediately, they're going to be making, there's going to be 4 agents or 3 agents of some kind presenting the data through agentic means. That is a change moment that you can look forward right now and be like, that's about right. Gartner is making a bet on it that you're going to continue to buy their subscriptions. It's trustworthy. So your ability to know what Nitin is talking about and is in an applied way, that's what it's trying to be relevant for you. So keep going.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Cameron. So what we are going to talk through right now is we are going to focus mostly around the data consumers today as part of a talk. But when I zoom out, we have like, when you look at the whole data value chain, there's all the way from, data practitioners who are working on day-to-day basis of data ingestion, cleaning, transformation, and they're like data scientists who are like trying to explore more data on doing exploratory analysis, feature engineering, and whatnot. And from there, the data analysts or the data consumers who are consuming data. So there's so many personas that are actually like across this value chain who are being bombarded with a lot of problems. So what kind of problems and challenges we are seeing? The first challenge, what we see is the business consumers, like, whether that could be across various business units, that could be customer support, or it could be financial, or it could be marketing teams asking for like more and more data insights and asking for these insights, asking for new dashboards, new and updated dashboards, or give me it in a faster manner, right? So the second challenge, what we are seeing is enormous growth of volume of data and not just structured data, right? So when we are looking at it, you see a lot of unstructured data across various modalities that's coming into the picture. And you as an enterprise, you might be combining this data with your existing data sets as well, right? So and the third challenge is the businesses also want this to be processed at a scale and at a speed, and they want the insights now, right? So they don't have time for the data pipelines to kind of process, manage. We want to know, for example, like how campaigns are performing now so that I can take action faster, right? We want to know what will happen next month pretty quickly, right? That's where the process and transformation data faster would come into the picture. And next, analyze, surface deeper insights. So the data analyst does not just want to know how to run a simple query, but they want to know the reasoning behind like why certain things are happening as well, and without writing complex SQL. Because every time you go and start writing code, that's going to take some time as well, which is going to be delayed for the business. So these are some of the challenges we are seeing. So how can organizations be adapting to this kind of changes across so many personas of the data landscape as well as the whole value chain, right? So how can we enable these teams? So we can be building some automation around this entire value chain, right? So all the way from data processing and ingestion and all the way to data consumption, right? So business users who might or might not be technical can use a self-serve manner to go analyze insights in the data without any engineering help or without any data analyst help, right? That's the North Star where we want to get to. And if you look at data analysts could also be like, do more exploratory work without writing complex SQL, right? Data scientists spend like 75% of their work on, exploring the data, feature engineering, like those things, where they lose, and data infrastructure setup. That's where they lose enormous amount of the time. So we want to definitely automate those processes to increase their value. And the next one is a data engineering. So data engineering also needs help around how can they easily manage their pipelines, build new pipelines, clean and transform the data, ingest the data, manage these things at a scale. So we can develop agents around this whole landscape of ecosystem so that it's effective and impacting across all these personas for data practitioners and data consumers.
Egan. So for those of you who are not in the IT shop, the other half of the audience or the people who were, they're in a food coma, it's too late to raise their hand, too much energy. For you all, it's important that you know this because it's how you or your team or your people are going to get the information rather than going to a dashboard. So if you have a little bit of this theory behind you of that flow from sources to ingest, process, analyze, and consume, then you have an idea of how consumption will be meaningful and relevant to you in the future. So this is a little bit of both the why it matters, and there's been a lot of talk about the why. This is a little bit on the how. And thank you for giving the context. It's really good.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to define what data agents are. So I'm also coining this term called data agents, which we use these days a lot. So you might have everybody heard about AI agent, right? So what's the differentiate? Like what does AI agent means, what a data agent means? I'm going to give you a very high level definition and also probably an analogy on how you think through. AI agent, as a lot of you know, that it's an autonomous application that could actually go perform certain tasks on behalf of the user by looking at the environment as well as whatever the tools it has, it can go do those things, right? And that's a general purpose or the general manager or generalist who can do a lot of the different kind of complex tasks in a very autonomous way. What is a data agent? Data agent, on the other hand, it has a scope around the data-related tasks. So that could be, writing that could be performing the tasks around data cleansing or writing complex SQL automatically or getting more data insights for the business users, right? So the data agent is a specialist. It's a digital specialist specifically designed around your data tasks so that it reasons around your data and to perform all these things. Whereas a generalist kind of does different kind of tasks to solve that particular problem. So as a simple analogy, let's say you have a follow-up email that you need to send to your high-performing client. The general purpose agent could say like, okay, you know what? I'm going to look at the CRM. I'm going to look at the calendar API tool, and I'm going to look at the email. I'm going to combine all these things and then schedule a meeting with my client, right? That's the analogy. Whereas the data agent, you might say like, okay, you know what? I want to get deeper insights, and I want to know performance campaign, how is it doing? Give me, the last 10 days worth of how this campaign has been performing in North America region, right? So you could see like the correlation of how the data agent scope is like literally around the data, so that it's helping the data user specifically. All right, so agents, what we are also working towards is like building various kinds of agents. And for today's talk, we are going to focus more on conversational analytic agents. But as you can see, where we are thinking through, and the reason I'm bringing up this whole thing is, you as a data experts, when you're working on the data landscape, I want you to zoom out a little bit and think about all the agents that you could do to transform your data value chain, right? Not just on conversational side or the data consumer side. Because NL to SQL has been the most prominent use case that we have been seeing across. But from the last 6 months to 1 year, we have been working with like a lot of enterprises who are automating across all the landscape of the data value chain, right? So we are seeing data engineering agents who actually help specifically building the pipelines, manage the pipelines, clean, transform. We are seeing data science agents who actually reduce the burden of data exploration for the data scientists, come up with new features to build the predictive models and those, so on and so forth. And we are also seeing conversational analytic agents, which are like simple data agents that could be used for data discovery, deeper data insights for your data analysts or your business users. All right, so now that we got some high-level overview, now let's turn over a little bit. As I said, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the conversational analytics side and how a multi-agentic system works in this particular data landscape, right? Before I start giving a high-level demo, I want to introduce the stack, what we have used to build this. And what you're seeing on the screen here is essentially a agent builder landscape on Google Cloud. But the patterns, what I'm saying here, are very agnostic. It's a very open that you could adopt on any cloud, actually. So here, the red boxes, what you're seeing on the screen, the top red box is the agent development kit, which is a framework, just like a LangChain or LangGraph or any other Crew AI frameworks, if you guys are like building. And we have used this particular framework to build a multi-agent today. And the second, the bottom red box is the runtime environment. It's called Agent Engine. And Agent Engine is a managed serverless environment where your agent, multi-agentic system could be hosted, and where the runtime environment manages all the orchestration between all the agents to get the task fulfilled. That is the heart of the system, where it's going to keep track of how each and every agent is functioning, how it's going to orchestrate, how it's going to manage the session in context, so on and so forth. All right, so next comes the Teradata MCP server. So Teradata MCP server, this is what we have used to integrate our multi-agentic system when we wanted to run these queries. So Teradata MCP server integrated with our multi-agentic system. for any queries that we were running. And we use specifically the tools from the from the query as well as the search. These are the tools what we have used. But as you can see, there are like so many tools. Like you leverage RAG tools for searching across the schemas, or if you want to have specific table information or metadata of that table, you could use specific tools for that. So as you can see, when I'm setting up all these things, the agents will use the right tool for the right task, right? So based on what information this particular AI needs, it actually resolves those tools at runtime, find the right tools for the right task, and then go get the task done. So that's the beauty of like how the MCP server, when it integrates with the agentic AI system. So I wanted to show the whole landscape over there. All right, here is a simple architecture, what I have put together for a conversational analytics. So as you can see, on the very top, where's it? Yeah, laser. Oh. How does the laser come? Trying to figure out.
I'll go get your laser.
Okay, no worries. All right, so what you can see on the screen is essentially, you are a data analyst, or you want to run certain queries to understand some of your data. And on the left, what you see is another big AI application. And if you guys remember, like if you folks remember from my first slide, the Gartner research, the 75% of the conversational analytics served. So imagine Agent Space is our agentic platform on Google Cloud, which I have used in this demo to show how an AI application can serve all the analytic content of your underlying data source. So that's what I was like trying to demonstrate as well. So Agent Space is used as an interface which can be connected to the underlying autonomous multi-agentic system that's going to go and, sorry. So that is going to look at all these green box, which is the multi-agentic system, which is an army of agents, which is going to understand the intent of your question, go gather the right tables and information, build a SQL query for you, come back and ask if this query is good enough. And then it's going to like go back and execute this query using the MCP servers against the Vantage data store. So it's a simple architecture what we have come up with, but as you move to production, you might have like few more components. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to like start showing you a small demo around this, how this is going to work. And what does that mean, like, okay, doing a natural language to SQL system in a multi-agentic way, and how, the AI agentic system can break down your intent and construct the query, which is very, very grounded into your SQL or into Teradata SQL specifically, and then, get back with the results and response, right? All right, so I'm going to switch back and forth on the architecture so that you guys follow everybody. Can we flip to the screen? Okay.
So 1 second while we get this rolling. Do you want to make it full screen?
Yes.
Oh, I think, Steve, you have to make it full, like focus on the display on your end.
Okay. Yeah. Can everybody see the screen? All right, I can zoom in. Okay. So imagine, this is the interface where I am, and now I'm going to play a scenario for it, right? Imagine I'm a chief customer officer. I walk into the office on Monday morning, and I got this email saying that, hey, one of the private banking clients, one of the multi-million-dollar private banking clients has some issues, and we need to know what's the issue. And me as a chief customer officer, I might be thinking around like, if I have to go bring this insights, I have to churn through Excel, I have to churn through like, a lot of engineering teams. This could be like days, right? We want this in minutes. If we don't do that, there's a churn that we need to intervene now so that we don't want to lose these high-value clients, right? That's the kind of experience that how executives might need, actually, right? So we're going to play through that scenario, and let's go with that. So I'll start with like, okay, even me as a new user, I don't even know where to start, right? I'll say like, okay, I'm new here. What complaint data do we have, right? So now what's going to happen? So imagine, so what's going to happen is under the hood, the army of agents is going to break down the intent and understand the query. Then it's going to go find the right schema first. Because I said complaints here, it has to go find the right schema. And once it finds the right schema of complaints, I query the MCP server to get the table metadata and information so that I know what all tables even exist to even look at the data set, right? So just giving the data set right out of the database is not quite helpful. That's not collaborative AI, right? So when I look at the agentic system, it has to do more. If it just gives me the data, then I can do that in the directly writing SQL, right? Like there's no reason. So what I'm doing here. So now, if you can see on the screen, the AI has completed it. It identified 3 data sets for me. It also identified 7,080 complaint records. And it gave me 3 data sets. One is the consumer complaints. The second is customer 360 details. And customer 360 complaints. These are the 3 tables what it found. And it also told me some interconnected data sets, like what are the relationships between the data. And it's suggesting me like what are the next steps I can do to get to my task right now, which is like, you can start troubleshooting or segmenting the customers to find the high value clients. Me as a chief customer officer, that's what I want to know. And why are they even complaining? I want to know those details as well, right? So next, what I'm going to do is, okay, what are the top 5 complaint category products by volume, right? So now I'm trying to segment the customers now to find the right customers or the high value customers so that I can go and talk to them and say, before they churn. That is the goal I'm trying to achieve. And within the whole 7,080 complaints what I got, I need to find the right ones which actually comes back. So now what happened under the query? So the AI agentic system, it went back, it wrote all the SQL query for me, and this SQL query is very grounded into Teradata syntax. By looking at the documentation, by looking at all the previous examples, what it had, so it came up with the query. And also some citations around how it built the query, right? That's where the collaborative AI comes in, because the trust and transparency is also very important. Me as an analyst or a consumer, if I have to trust the query to run, I also have to know how this query has come up. If I have some basic knowledge, maybe I can figure that out. But for any AI systems that has to go to production, it will not be like on day one. So there will be trust and transparency issues that you also have to make sure the reasoning is provided very well so that the humans really can understand and reason around that, right? Because if you are a guy who are used to Excel sheets and dashboards from last 10 years, you wouldn't be trusting from day one, right? Like you will still be making sure things are fine, right? So that's the concept here, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is, it's also suggests me, okay, let's go ahead and execute the query. So now what it's going to do. So I told the AI system, let's go ahead and execute the query. But I don't want the query to just go and run it against the database and just give me data dump. What I have done is, the underlying AI agent army, it is going to go execute the query. And once it gets the results, it's going to identify what are the customer categories. It is going to give me in a format that is helpful for me as an executive to actually look at it in a very quick manner, comprehend the data, understand some business intelligence around it. That could be financial impact, that could be like what is the churn risk? What is the amount I'm going to lose if I don't do this now, right? That's where the intelligence comes into the picture, right? So the query has to go run, execute the query, build the intelligence, build the visualization, present it into a format that is comprehensible for me so that I can make informed decisions in quick manner, right? So as this query is running, right, couple of patterns I really want to bring up for anyone who is building these systems, right? So one of the patterns, especially for multi-engine system, when you're running SQL queries, when you're building natural language systems, right? So identifying a lot of these grounded SQL, to get the query right is quite challenging. A lot of demos, what we see is our demos. But when you get into the real fact to make the query consistently working is really quite challenging, right? And that's where the grounded generation RAG comes into the picture. What does the grounded RAG generation means by? So imagine, you as a enterprise, you have been writing a lot of SQL and also like, a lot of examples, lot of these code or SQL code written by the data engineering team, data analyst team, as well as a bunch of these examples over a period of time. You could be indexing all these examples to, into certain embeddings to make the AI learn to ground its generation using those standards. This is extremely important because you as an enterprise, you have certain coding standards. You follow certain compliance and certain regulations. So these large language models have a knowledge that is generated or trained on outside world, right? They don't understand your enterprise's coding standards. So it's very important for you to make sure they are using your own coding standards and also grounding generation of your SQL that has been written. So you can use vector stores and the architecture what I shared earlier could be we have used Teradata vector store or Vertex AI vector store to create those embeddings out of the SQL. You RAG it, you create a corpus out of it, and then make the AI agent look at it to write the SQL. So that was one of the interesting experiences. And as you move to production, this is going to be very important as well for you to loop through. Because imagine, right, if I don't do that, and I'm putting, again, I'm going to go back to that collaborative AI thing, right? Because me as a data analyst, I'm sitting there, I'm writing all this SQL, and the AI is coming back with wrong syntax. And I'll do that for 2-3 times, and then I'll say I'm giving up. I don't want to use this tool anymore. So adoption is also very critical. So when you're thinking, product design is also very critical, not just about being technically good. Right? As you can see on the screen, go ahead.
What I find interesting about this is the 4th time I've seen Nitin's demo. The data is always the same, but because it's an agent that's doing the presentation, the bar chart, it's always different. It's always a little slightly different colors. Or it's I'm like, well, that's the thing I'm paying attention to, obviously, but it's just a point of reference, right, of how things work. It's generative, not scripted. Yeah.
Thank you. So as you can see on the screen, the visualization has come up. And I know the screen is a little bit small, so I'm going to try increasing the font size for you. So it came back with certain visualization where it is saying, it gave me the top 5 product categories by complaint volume. The top product category complaints is credit card and prepaid card issues. It has about 2,300 complaints. And that is the highest concerning alarm. Apart from that, you see there's a 37% percentage of the highest category of complaints. So me as a chief customer officer, this is what I'm looking at right now. Apart from that, it also gave me a risk score, right? The credit risk, and also there's an operational cost. So I'm paying about $50 per complaint cost. if I have to do this. And also the top 5 categories constitute like, this is a financial impact, right? And also, it is giving me certain action items, what I should take. It's take an immediate action now in next 48 hours to do your root cause analysis and go talk to these customers before they churn, right? So it's also saying like, okay, would you like to run the follow-up query for the top issues credit card? But I'm going to ask a very different question. So imagine I'm going to go back to the problem we are solving, right? My goal is to find the high-value customers and intervene so that they don't churn. Now I want to say which high-value customers, because now that I have identified the credit card and prepaid card is the top complaint volume category, I want to find high-value customers within this so that I can get back to them pretty quickly. So now I'll say which high-value customers have filed complaints, what issues they are facing. Yeah. So now I asked this question, but I also tricked the AI system now. So what I did is, I said which high value customers, but I did not tell what does high value mean by. So the system should not just go fake it. It should not go do something by itself. It should ask for a clarification, right? So it came back. It said like, okay, you know what? I can help with that, but I need your input for high value customers. What does high value mean by, right? So it also gave me certain recommendations. It looked at all the data set. It said like, okay, there are 3 segments within the high value. There's a private banking, mass affluent, and mass market. And you can also find by customer lifetime value and like so on and so forth, right? And I'm going to go with like the highest tier value customers, which is, okay, let's go with private banking and mass affluent, right? So this is the tier that I'm selecting right now from the segmentation, where I'm telling the AI, this is the high value customers, because I got an email saying that high value customers are at the issue. This is what I'm going to go and find that, right? So now the AI will go back. It will again, find the high value customers, construct the query for me, come back to me saying that, hey, I found these, excellent choice. It's saying like, okay, this is what you will do. And it came up with a query. And I'm going to run this query. Okay, let's go ahead and run it. So now it has to go find the customers for me who are high value. It will pull those details from the response. And it should give me back with a format of either the customers list, then I can go immediately take an action on them, and then also give me like what does the money, how much of the money I would lose if these customers are not met in next 48 hours, right? So that's the kind of intelligence layer I have added into it. But as you can see, the whole system, what I have developed here, is very trivial in the sense these components are very flexible, right? So you can mix and match or change how you are coming back, how you can put into the production, right? And as you can see, the response came back. And the response came back with 2 customers. One is John, and the second customer is Alphonse. Both of them are high value, mass affluent and private banking. And it also gave me a financial exposure. So it's saying the customer lifetime value is at risk. There's a churn probability. There's an ROI. And it is suggesting me to take an action like in next 24 hours. So, and this is the whole synthesis of me as an executive. I'm like doing all these things by myself without reaching to any team now. Or I could be a customer relationship manager at a financial institution as well. Or if me as a data analyst, I got all this, now I will say like, you know what? I want to generate a executive report. I want to generate report to share with necessary data, right? So executives love data, so we want to put as much data as possible to comprehend the time as much as possible. So we could be generating like some of this data along with the visualizations and share it with executives to take immediate actions, right? So that's executive intelligence like in 4 or 5 minutes rather than weeks and days, right? So that's what we are targeting and how we are pushing the bar on, which would have taken like days and weeks or probably some engineering effort to go build new dashboards and whatnot. Now that can be totally automated using AI to drive these insights, deeper insights, not just basic insights, right? So you can drill down further to get that. So as you can, we'll wait for the query to finish, but once this is done, what we are also going to talk as part of the next set of things is, the demos are good, but how do we take it to production, right? And we want to so looks like the query finished. Here is the executive report that came back. It added some visualization, and it gave me like 2 customers. One is a mass affluent and private banking. And it also gave the executive report, basically saying that, okay, this is a high value customers report, what it has given me, and that I could be sharing with like some of the visualization. But you get the point, right? So you could be adding more intelligence and formats. Essentially, you can teach AI how you want the format, what kind of style you want, what kind of visualizations you want, what kind of data inputs you want. So you can feed all those things. You can instruct it specifically to generate it the way you want, right? That's the goal. Cool. So now that we've finished the demo, we'll move towards how do we take it to production, right? So this is where I want to invite Merlin. So what we're going to do, we're going to switch to the slides quickly. All right. Yeah, it's working.
Hello.
Oh, we missed it.
Great.
So we're going to talk through some of the challenges in productionized systems. Before that, I want to introduce Merlin. Merlin, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so Merlin Yamsi, I'm part of the AIML COE at Google Cloud, partner engineering. So I work with partners like Teradata, strategic partners, to co-innovate and to bring solutions to market, right? So you could have built this great demo, and then a business user come and say, we should throw it in the garbage.
Yeah.
Right? Because the cost is very expensive, because maybe security, safety, you haven't looked at all this enterprise readiness that is needed for a solution, right? So this is really what we want to talk about. And there are a lot of challenges to bring those solutions into production, right? So one of the key ones that I wanted to highlight is, first is the strategic alignment, right? You're building a solution, but you want to make sure that it's aligned with the business. There's an impact. There's something, a value out of it, right? That's the number one, right? Otherwise, you don't even have to build it. But once it's built, you also need to make sure about the scalability. Is this scalable? Can you bring that into production? Can you scale? Can you make that securely scale? And then the number 3, which is probably non-negotiable, is the data governance. This is where partners like Teradata are key, right? Because the data is the non-negotiable part. You need to bring the data together, make it seamless. Bring that in a way that you can innovate on top of it, right? Not very siloed as we see in many, many cases, right? Number 4 is the security. If you build a solution and then we bring that out and then we start having a lot of flows, that is not usable. We can't take it into production. You need to make sure about the compliance and the risk that your solution will bring, and you need to put some guardrail on top to make sure that the solution is secure and also have the data privacy, right? And number 5, which is sometimes ignored, is it doesn't have to be a black box. Because if something happened and you don't know why it happened, you can't take that in production either, right? It's about observability, it's about measurement. You need to measure the resilience, the cost, everything that needs to be captured for root cause analysis, to understand what happened, and to make sure that we have all the necessary information. So with all these different KPIs, you can, if you make sure that you take care of all these KPIs, this is where you probably can think of moving into production.
May I talk? So for those of you in the audience, how many of you, in your view, consider your place of work do something similar to what Nathan shared as a demo? Can I get a quick show of hands, or like 1, 2, 3, 4. So like only a quarter of you. So most of you are like, I don't know, we'll see, right? I guess for those of you who are like advanced thinkers and looking ahead, these are the things you have to be thinking about to make sure you're covered, at least with intentionality before you start. So when Merlin's talking about the lessons learned, painful lessons learned by people who have been doing this for a while, who didn't do one of these things. So I want to kind of emphasize the point clearly. It's not a complicated list of things, but it's regrettable if you don't do it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And clearly, when it's ready, when your solution, when you have checked all the boxes, now you need to work from prototype to full-scale production, right? So we like to say, start small, but think big. Because it's really something that is very, very important, because you can define, if you start too much, you bring too much things from the beginning, you may be overwhelmed, right? You need to build one agent pretty well with all the necessary readiness that we spoke about, and then you scale, right? So you start very small, very specific, you build around, and then you scale. And make it modular, so that you can add, you can add more and more, and then you can observe what is happening before you make it, because it's very complex. Those systems are complex. When you think about the end-to-end stack, you have the infrastructure, you have the data, you have the model, you have the framework, and then you have the agent, and then you have the UI. And all these things need to work together. It could be very complex. It could be like a spaghetti, right? And then you have to make sure the governance around all these things work together. So modularity, start small, think big, and then eval-driven, which means at every steps, you need to do evaluation. Evaluation is key, because that's where, for example, earlier today, you can run the demo 2, 3, 4 times, and then you have unpredictability, right? You have different. So you need to make evaluation. You need to have a data set, evaluation data set that you use to make that very predictable. And then for very different, human in the loop is sometimes very key, because for some use case, you may want to have, you may have some risk or low confidence actions that you want to track. And you want to put the human to make sure in the middle, right, human in the loop, to provide some feedback on that, right? So that's something that we also discovered that is very important. And then phased rollout, right? You roll out, you make features, you roll out, you add feature, etc. So you do that by phase, right? It's very, very, very critical. Now, that being said, what would be the key success for having all these together, right? To make it work, right? Open ecosystem, which means maximum of standard, right? A2A, open telemetry, MCP. So make sure you're not using something that tomorrow will be obsolete, right? Make sure you're using some standard that you can keep for many, many, many years. So open ecosystem. observability, as I said earlier, comprehensive logging, tracing, monitoring, make sure you understand what you're doing so that you can, at the end of the day, do some root cause analysis. Continuous improvement, feedback loops, right? You need to be able to turn failure into test case. If it fails, it's not because it's bad, it's because maybe it has been given some bad prompt. So, but use that for continuous improvement. Cost management. Sometimes people want to use the best model, right? But the best model is not always the cheapest. And maybe for some task, you want to just use a small model that really do the task, and it's cheaper. So make sure you can adapt the models with the task, right? And manage the cost, because otherwise the CFO or the business guy will say, oh no, it's too expensive, right? So you need to take care of that. And then leverage the partner expertise. So we work with partners like Teradata. They have their strength, we have our strength, working together to create better together story, and then we can go to market. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Right.
I think, here we go. Do you want to?
Thanks, Martin.
Yeah.
So when Nit and I were talking about what we wanted to say here in terms of like the better together story, the part that Marlon just made about having it in all three of the last slides, which are conceptual, if you pause and take a step back and like, what does that look like? That is like foundational application development tenets, right? How to be ready, what do you do to actually build, and then what do you need to be able to ensure to be successful. And it's so that forethought is what leads to the outcome that you're looking for. The last point around the ecosystem, how the ecosystem works together, that's where we all live now. Everybody wishes, and every single company will tell you they have the best thing. And the truth is that they probably do, but you need 1,000 different things to build the outcome that you want based off speed or flexibility or price or whatnot. When we talk often about better together or co-opetition or like how do we succeed and how do we enable our customers succeed in the world, it's something like this, right? And this is how Google and Teradata are working together, where we together, the number of capabilities that our customers can use are far superior than what either company can bring to themselves. The amount of high quality, irreplaceable, carefully governed and structured data in the Teradata instances around the world is a level of data gravity that is we are the inheritors from 40 years of being the leading enterprise data warehouse platform. That expressed into our agentic future needs the tools to express it. And some of those tools are coming from Teradata, and many are coming from Google. Yeah. So, I can read the words, but really, it's like find the right way in your shop or with your partners, or if you're an SI, how you make your customers successful. Bring those pieces together, and we will help you.
Yeah. And just to add to that, right, like one of the, as you can see where the sweet spot is, right, specifically around being enterprise ready. That's the one point that you guys can walk out today, right? So as you look at these tools, they are demos, but what we are also bringing onto the table is the global scale of infrastructure, along with the data sovereignty and groundedness, how you can generate it for your enterprise standards. That's the moat. And we are not just talking about like one persona, but how do we going to do this at a scale across your enterprise, which is production ready, is what Teradata and Google is bringing onto the table, right? Next slide.
I think that's pretty much.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the presentation.
So we have some documentation. So one last key point I want to make is, yes, there's a lot of content. It could be overwhelming, right? We have added some resources. But now you might be also thinking like, my data teams have been building a lot of SQL. We have a lot of data engineering teams. We have a lot of data analyst teams from long time which are over there, right? So should we start from ground zero? No, not really. So we have like some resources which are accelerators for you to start, right? And also you can bring your existing SQL, which is extremely important for grounded generation. If you remember my point of how do you get the SQL right? How do you ground it in your enterprise organization which can be trusted from day one? That's the thing, right? So you can bring over all the existing assets, whether it's your code, whether the SQL, and build on top of it. That's where Teradata and Google can help out. So if you're working for some of those use cases, we are happy to be helpful here. We have our whole Google team and Teradata team, so we'll be happy to answer and walk you in any of those use cases as well. So there's some documentation. We have open sourced whole bunch of starters, accelerator packs, so that you can play around today, and also how you can think through about your enterprise ready production. So yeah, definitely we are looking forward for that.